Hey everyone, it's your girl Deb from Let's Get Real About Mental Health. We're here today to talk about, I thought today we would talk about self discovery. Since we've talked about our childhood traumas and we've talked about recovering from our childhood traumas, I thought the next logical step would be to talk about our self discovery. Now, I think a good starting point is to point out that self improvement is different than self discovery. However, the two go hand in hand because when you start to improve your situation, you start to ask, you put yourself in a place where you're more comfortable asking questions about the things that you have been taught and the way that you've been shown to live your life. So, we as a society, well, first off, society absolutely does not want us to ask ourselves these questions. It is easier for our society to restrict everyone into these little molds that they have made for us, and everything would just be so hunky dory if everybody fell into these little molds and stuff like that. But to live a more fulfilling life, you really do. You have to start asking yourselves the hard questions because in our youth, we are actually trained as young children, and in our youth, we're trained to think a certain way by our parents, by our guardians, what have you, and that really is a reflection on their belief system, not on your belief system, or not on your desires or your preferences in life. And as teenagers, we try so hard to fit in and find a way to fit into the populace, find our own little groups, that we tend to stuff down any questions that we have started to have towards the teachings of our when we were younger. For myself, I think that the questions started much later in life. I did not start questioning my belief system until I was probably mid to late 20s. And at that point, I started questioning everything really, really heavily. And it's only taken me, 25 years to get where I'm at this point. But, I'm in a really good place now where I've started to form my own beliefs and come to some really good conclusions about myself that kind of knowledge about myself allows me to really reach out to other people and say, hey, I understand the journey of self-discovery. I understand getting to a point where you're questioning so much later in life, and I think now I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, y'all. The thing that comes into play with the road to self-discovery is that you have to understand this can be a really, really long road. It really can be. But then again, for some people, it's not, because they start to ask those questions and they start to realize, yeah, you know what? I do believe the way that I was taught, and that is my fundamental belief system, and that's great. I am so glad that if you found a belief system and you're just coming back into it and redevoting yourself to that belief system, whatever it may be, good for you. If it works for you, then good for you. But those of us who had to really start doing some really hard thinking and asking those very hard questions, that is where the journey has to begin. You have to start asking yourself really hard questions. Like for me, I think we can all think there's a time in our lives when somebody's been telling us something about the way that they believe or the way they look at things, and you kind of like cock an eyebrow and you're like, I don't think that I agree with you completely in what you're saying. But if you're younger or you're brought up in a way that I was brought up not to question my elders. I just had to sit down, shut up, and take it in. So, and that very old school way, that's just the way it was. So I did question for a long time. Like, the big question for me was that if God is real, then why are there so many different views on God, so many different versions, if you may say, of God. And I would ask that question, well, then if there's a God, then don't all roads, all religions lead to him? Are we all just, fighting over nothingness? Because it doesn't make sense. If God is real, then why would they prefer one religion over another? And that was where I started my questioning. And I think that when we start talking about questioning yourself and finding your truth, you have to, I think you start to understand that you cannot be complete. You cannot be complete if you don't start living truly for yourself, because you have to know that inside you truly are creating your own happiness or creating your own space that where you can be the most comfortable in order to achieve all that life is there to for you to achieve. That was very twisted. I'm sorry, my tongue is a little bit tied up. I might have smoked a little bit before I came on because I was super, super nervous. So when we're talking about trying to find yourself and define yourself, the first thing you have to do, you guys, is the worst step of all. And it sucks. And I've done this 100 times over, and I'll probably do it 100 more times, is you have to start making sense of your past. You have to start making sense of all those things that you were taught. For me, I was taught to be a woman was in the home. A woman cooked and cleaned for her man. A woman had the babies. And it didn't matter if there was strife in the home. That is an AKA for, abuse in the home, that you just stayed married. And that was how it worked. And I began questioning that when I entered my first marriage and I was starting to have an abusive marriage. I knew it was abusive before, but hindsight's 20/20. And I started questioning that. How can this be okay? How can this be okay for this person who is supposed to be, according to the religion, supposed to be protecting me, supposed to be providing for me, but yet they make me feel like I am nothing. I am less than nothing. I am subservient to them. And I even found in my younger self, I even found myself thinking, and this was probably the wake-up call for me, was I found myself thinking, what do we think? Meaning my husband and I, not what do I think? It was what do we think? I wasn't even valuing my own opinion at that point, or giving myself credit for having an intelligent thought where I could form my own opinion. And that's where the whole questioning and questioning my past, looking into what I was taught, because I was taught if you do all these things, you're gonna go to heaven, and that's great and okay. I think I'd like to live a really good life here, in the now, and be in the moment and be my happiest now, and that's where my process started. So the first thing that, some tips for starting to question your past, you have to overcome that destructive thought processes that other people have put in your mind. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not a good enough daughter. You're not a good enough wife. Well, why can't I just be a good enough Deborah? Because being Deborah is pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me these days. It's pretty freaking awesome. And I think that starting to question that and say, okay, let me look at who said these things to me, and let me start to redefine what I think these things mean to me. And earlier today, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was saying, I'm 52 years old, and it's been a rarity in my life that I've ever felt beautiful. I've never felt beautiful. Well, I actually remembered a time when I did feel beautiful. I was 15, 16 years old, and you know how teenagers are. We all full of ourselves, and, we're showing more than we should be, dressing up, all the makeup. It was the 80s, y'all. That's just what we did, But I remember one particular day, I felt so good about myself. And I was like, damn, I look good. This is good. I'm feeling good about me. And I remember coming out of my bedroom and having a parental figure tell me, you need to stop dressing like that. you're asking for bad things to happen to you. You're asking for people to treat you in a certain way because you're dressed that way. Now, had that parental figure said to me, hey, Deb, you're beautiful. You're a beautiful young lady. You know, you're looking good and all of that. I just need you to think about a couple of things before you go out like this and make sure this is what, you know, this could happen to you. And I need you to be aware. So them saying, you know, maybe dress differently for your own safety is different than shaming me into feeling like I am not beautiful. And that stuck with me for 30 plus years, where I still have a really hard time believing it when anybody tells me that I'm beautiful. You know, because I still see that 15-year-old girl who got shut down and didn't have the resources or the knowledge or the self-esteem to fight back and say, hey, you know what? No, that's not right. So that was one of the really defining moments of where that is. Now, when I said you have to start questioning, you also have to start challenging. You have to challenge your negative thoughts, because those negative thoughts, those things that we learned back in the day, they start to become a habit. And they become nasty habits, you know, where you think that you've been told so much that you're a piece of shit, you start to think you're a piece of shit, you know, or you think that you're subservient because you've been told time and time again that you are subservient, you know, and we all joke around, and we joke around as women anyway and say, you know, I don't need no man. Okay. I may not need a man in my life, but I sure like to have a man in my life. And that was a big difference for me. I had to learn the difference between like and need. Okay. Because I am strong enough. I've learned this over the years in my own self-discovery, that I am strong enough. I can make it on my own. Do I particularly want to? Nah, not really. I kind of like hanging out with people and having that. But that was something I had to teach myself. The next one, and we had talked about it briefly on last week's shows, you have to abandon those defensive patterns. You can't constantly be going, oh, HR, I'm telling you, every week I get into your head. Every week I'm sorry, the different patterns, the defensive patterns, because I have a friend who says wonderful things about me. And still, because this is a fairly new friendship, I don't, without question, believe that person yet, because I am still trying to get over those defensive patterns where I'm like, well, you know, he's just saying that because of this. He's just saying that because he likes me to do this or likes me to do that or what have you. And in actuality, in my head, I now know that this person is a really great guy and they're not like that. But it took me probably a good month or so to figure that out in my own head. And I'm not saying that person gave me any clues or anything to look at that would have put me into that space. It was my own stuff. So that's another thing that we have to do. And then you have to ask yourself, this is the big one. It is so hard, you guys. Oh, I think anyway. I think it's hard because once you start to break down those 3 walls that I just talked about, we're going to start talking about looking at what actually makes me or you as a person fulfilled. What makes you happy? Now, how the heck are you supposed to figure out what makes you happy if you've been told your whole life that you're nothing? That you have to behave a certain way in order to be taken into heaven or be loved, you know? It's rough. It's very, very rough. And you have to do you really have to just stop and think for yourself. What is it? For me, my happiness, my thing that brought me the most happiness and still does this day is helping people. The difference is that before I started this journey, I would help people to my own detriment. I would make it so I would give so much there was nothing left for me. And I now know that I can give to people and I can help people and I can be this giving, loving person that makes me feel good, and not leave the tanks empty for myself. Because in order to be that good, loving person, I have to leave something in the tanks for myself to be able to take care of myself. And it's not easy, but I'm so glad that I am at a place now where I can absolutely say that and say, you know, this is the way I am. and I need to take care of me, because there's nothing selfish about taking care of yourself. And the journey to self-discovery is absolutely 100% not selfish. It's about learning who you are and learning the things that you need to fulfill your life. Now, the next one is a whole lot easier. We're going to set goals for ourselves. Now, in my personal life, it's a little bit harder for me professionally. With the help of some really great friends, I've set a short-term goal for myself. And, with my my channel, I really want to get up to 100 plus followers. And thank you, Ben, for starting that ball rolling. And that's my goal. And I work towards that. But that means I'm putting myself out there more. I'm opening myself up to people who are not in agreement with my journey to self-fulfillment, for them to be able to come on and say, hey, I'm not in agreement, or what did we teach you, or anything like that. But that's okay, because I'm strong enough now that I can tell that person, hey, you don't have to like me anymore. Just because you're my relative, you don't have to like me. Because I got news for some of my relatives, and they know this. I don't like y'all. I may love you, but I don't like you all. Some of you are just too much for me. And it's okay if I become one of those people to you. That's okay. It's okay that we do that. So the other thing that we need to kind of concentrate on is that we need to look at the most important thing in self-discovery or defining yourself, is that we have to look at the most important part of our life. And the most important part of our life, number one, is loving yourself. You have to love yourself before you can, number two, be in a loving relationship. Okay? And be in a place where you can be loved without question. Hard as hell to do, because you're putting yourself out there, and you're starting to feel, oh, do I feel a little unsafe? Those old doubts, those old people in your life saying those awful things to you, they always come back, and they're always going to rear their ugly heads. But I have learned recently, and I would say in the last 3 to 4 months, I have learned very recently that it is okay that those voices come back, because you know what? That person is no longer in my life. And I made that step away from that person. And I'm actually in such a good community now where I get strength and I get love from friends who accept me. No questions asked. They absolutely accept me. And that's super important, because that is a big step to your own self-discovery. Like recently, and it's okay that I share this because I talked to the other person about it first. I've always been to the point where, I'm sorry, before I get into the story. So Jenny, to me, loving myself means making myself a priority. Loving the things about me that I used to hate, or people would say were bad because they weren't following a certain doctrine or a certain way that they wanted to live their life. That's what self-love means to me. I look at myself in the mirror, and I still struggle with feeling beautiful and all that, but I look myself in the mirror, and I know without a doubt I am a good person. I am absolutely a good person, and I want to make the world a better place, my little corner at a time. And I'm going to spread the love and good feelings that I've found for myself. I'm going to spread them to other people. So I hopefully that answers your question about what that looks like for me. But loving yourself can look like a whole lot of things, treating yourself, acknowledging your wins when you're having a bad day, treating yourself to something new, or a snack or something like that. It just means to take a moment in your day. And if one's all you got, then that's all you have in you, then take that win and acknowledge what you're feeling, and you're feeling good about yourself, and acknowledge that win, because you have to acknowledge yourself for the good things that you do in your life, or the good things you do for yourself. I hope that answers that question, Jenny. But like what I was saying is that, like, I have been, I'm sure all of you know, because I've been open and honest with the community that I found myself embraced in, is that I am polyamorous. So I've been married to my husband as of Saturday. It'll be 21 years. I but I find other fulfillment with other people. And I've considered myself bi-curious for a long time because, I have always appreciated beautiful things. Why not, right? Why not appreciate the beautiful things that are in life, And if I see a good person or a beautiful person, I certainly am going to appreciate it. But I've come to realize that I am more pansexual than anything. And the reason being is that I found myself very attracted to a man, flirting with him, having a grand old time. And then he told me, I'm trans, right? I'm like, I had no effing clue. And then I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he's trans. What attracted me to him when I thought he was a cis male are the same things that attract me now that I know he's trans. It makes no damn difference whatsoever. So that's a big thing for me. That's a big thing that I came to that revelation just probably, like I said, about maybe 3 weeks ago. And I have felt so comfortable in my own sexuality now that I have made that big, declaration, or not declaration. It's a good thing I could talk, huh? Now that I've realized that about myself, because I can never, thank you, Uncle Beck. I can never see myself, nice, Sadie, nice. I can never see myself going back to the fact that, that's the word I wanted. I give up. I'm not even going to try. I can never see myself going back to being, I'm strictly attracted to you because you're a man, or because you're a cis man, or any of that. I can't see it. What I'm attracted to is the person within, the good heart, the compassion, of course there's physical attributes, but that's just, that's part of life, but I could just never see myself putting myself back in that box again, where I'm only attracted to this because of what they have or don't have, or, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. And that was a big breakthrough. It absolutely was a big breakthrough for me, because I was always, again, in my young life, I was taught being gay was wrong. And I've known in my heart of hearts, or being trans was wrong. But I've known in my heart of hearts that was not correct my entire life. And I've absolutely 100% raised my children to know that it's okay. It's okay to be gay. It's okay to be trans. Your mom loves you no matter what. And I think it's really great that I actually could have that conversation that I just put out there with you guys. I could call my son, my youngest son, tomorrow and say, hey, I made this revolution. He'd be like, go, Mom. You going to tell me about anybody? Because that's the kind of relationship that we have. We're open and honest about that. And as you can see, when you start to make these steps down, self-discovery and finding your true self and living your truth, is that your self-confidence grows just over and over and over again. Yes, I was very nervous about talking about this in front of a bunch of people. And yes, I did text that person and say, hey, I'm so nervous. Am I doing the right thing? And he's like, just go with it. Just whatever you feel is right for you, Deborah. And that made me, this is what's right for me, because I hold myself up to my entire 5'2", not much, I know, but I stand straight and I stand tall now, way more than I did back in my 20s, where I would try to hunch my shoulders and try to hide myself. And I don't want to be seen, because I don't want people to realize I'm having these questions and I don't know, and I didn't know how to answer them. I didn't know how to address them, but now as a 52-year-old woman, I'm standing tall, and I'm proud of me, and I'm proud of my, progress. So the other thing that you should start, asking yourself is, now, when you're asking yourself these questions, to try to find what you're passionate about. We're talking about passionate, and we're not just talking about work stuff in life, as I just did with you guys. You have to find what you're passionate about physically and in possible relationships, because that is something that is a big part of being human. And to deny that is it's sad to me. It's very sad to me, because I very much did deny it in my younger years. I've always been a very sexual person. And there's nothing wrong with a woman being a very sexual person. And I think that when I started asking myself, what am I passionate about? Well, I think we all in the time in the moment are very passionate about physical relationships, but I'm passionate about being that way with other people, because it's something that I very much enjoy. And I like not just the sex part. I like the whole thing, the whole, like the courting, the flirting, the snuggling after. I like the whole thing. And that is something that I try to be honest about with people. So, the other thing is, you got to start looking at your patterns and behaviors. Purple, that makes me sad. That you've never been passionate about anything. We'll talk later. We'll start exploring things if you're willing to. I'm willing to start exploring, like different things, talking about different subject matters with you. That would be great. You have to start looking at the patterns and behaviors of yourself, because we do have patterns and behaviors. I would stand up and say, that's wrong, but I wouldn't have a reason for why I felt it was wrong. So what I started to do is I started to do my own research, and I started to understand that the things that I had been taught, in younger years did not define me. Okay. They did not have to be my beliefs. As you guys all know, I am firmly in the I am firmly out of the theist category. I'm really just trying to explore where I'm at, if I'm an agnostic, if I'm an atheist. I like to consider myself a humanist above all else, because that's what's important to me. But I had to really start figuring out and doing my own research so that I could be an advocate for myself. I can go and talk to people and say, well, this is why I don't believe that. And this is what I researched, and this is what I found. And that's a big step. And it's really important, because again, breeds your self-confidence. The more you educate yourself and can defend your way of thinking and your way of living, or not defend, I'm coming up short on the right word, because we shouldn't have to defend how we feel or think. We don't have to justify it. But the more I want to talk about it openly in a conversation, you research and you build your confidence being able to do that. And the thing you also do, you guys, and this one I'm kind of on the fence about, but I'll go ahead and share it anyway, is that you have to open yourself up to feedback from those that you consider near and dear. Now, the key to this is positive feedback only. Because some people have no boundaries, and they will come in and they will wreck shop all over your newfound confidence, your newfound love for yourself, and they will try to just tear you down as fast as they possibly can. Okay, so you only take the positive stuff when you're on this journey, and you don't have to. Gosh, I just lost my train of thought again. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm not feeling super well, and the cold medicine, it might be wearing off a little bit. So you have to put up your boundaries. That's what I was going to say. You take your positive feedback and you put up your boundaries, and just tell people, hey, no, I'm not here to hear. I don't want to discuss with you why you think I'm wrong. Well, not why you think. I don't want to be trashed or taken apart. I'm here to have an open dialogue. And if you could have an open dialogue in a positive manner, then yes, I am all about that open dialogue. And then when you're looking at your passions, the other thing you need to look at is where does your compassion lie? Where do you feel that spark of compassion? For me, it's towards my fellow man. It's been true in everything I've ever done in my life. I'm just a lot more open and honest about it. Now I don't justify the fact that I want to go give that homeless man money because they look like they need it. I don't care that somebody's going to say, they're probably going to buy booze with that. Okay, his life is freaking miserable right now, y'all. He's homeless. And if a drink makes him feel better, then I'm not even going to judge. It's not my place to judge anybody in that situation. And then you got to find this is probably my favorite part of this whole thing. When I was doing my research is you got to find your why. Find your why. Why is this? Why do I need to make sense of this? Why do I need to be in this place of new discovery and this journey that is not easy? Why do I need to have that happen for myself? And the simple answer for me is that because I never knew happiness, never knew true happiness until I started being, thank you, HR. I started questioning things because I never felt whole, I guess, in following my parental thought processes, my parents' ways of thinking. I never felt whole. I followed them blindly because that's, kind of what you do. But when I started to question it, I was very much shut down and told, hey, that's not right. Don't question that. Don't question what your dad said. Don't question what your mom said. Well, why not? I'm a human being. I am allowed to have my own thoughts, processes, my own ways of thinking, my own ways of looking at things that are working for me. Because it doesn't have to work for anybody else, you guys. That's the thing about self-discovery. It doesn't have to work for anybody else. It just has to work for me. Beck, you're going to make me blush. It doesn't have to work for anybody else. Like my husband and I, we're not 100% on the same page all the time. No, we're two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. That's what we are. And if we were perfect, then, life would just be boring as all heck. If we were all perfect and everything was just great, sunshiny, flowers blooming, skies are always blue type world, first off, we would be boring. Second off, it's not in our human nature to accept a perfect. It's just not. It's as perfect as you can make it for yourself. And that's super important. It's just as perfect as you can make it for yourself. So now I'm sure absolutely 100% you guys are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need, and it starts as it's a 5-tier system, where the most important need is at the bottom and it just works up and works up. So this journey of self-discovery or finding yourself is absolutely follows that concept, because you cannot fulfill yourself and find your true self and be truly happy in yourself until you fulfill all the needs in your life. Okay, so that means addressing this journey to every section of your life. And, relationships, what are you going to do as far as a profession or a career is concerned that is fulfilling for you as a person? Again, I fall back on me is where everything I've ever done has been in healthcare. Absolutely 100%. It absolutely has been. I was a paramedic. I was a massage therapist. I ran a memory care unit and assisted living. COVID absolutely beat that out of me. Absolutely beat it out of me to the point where I retired completely. But now I found that I'm not being fulfilled in that area of my life. So I went back to work, and I work with autistic children now. And that brings me such joy and happiness, and that I am fulfilling that. So now I can start looking on to different areas of my life where I need to think about things more. And I'm able to accept that, I don't believe in God. I'm questioning God's existence. And that's okay for me because that's what makes the most sense to me. Now, does that mean everybody has to be an atheist or an agnostic? No, absolutely not. You do you. That's the whole point of what I'm talking about is you do you and you provide happiness within yourself, for yourself, and love yourself so that you can put out a more positive note for the rest of the world. And I think I could probably talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I feel like I'm kind of starting to repeat myself. But it's the other thing I think is that I think it's important to us as parents, those of us who are parents, those of us who are considering being parents. Again, my opinion, don't do to your children what was done to you. I have 3 children. You guys, I have 3 atheist children because I raised my children to be free thinkers, to ask those questions. And it's okay to ask those questions because mom is going to support you 100%, no matter what. And I think that when we start looking at it that way, and you could be that open thing, HR, I agree 100%, is absolutely challenging and rewarding. When we start to put ourselves out there, like I'm the cool aunt, and I'm actually I'm happy to say a great aunt, about 5 times over now, so it's super exciting for me. But I'm that cool aunt that when those questions arise, you can come to me and we can talk, okay? And I will give you a perspective that is totally different. But if you're, as parents, you don't allow for your kids to be comfortable with going to that cool aunt or going to that person who their thought processes jive with a little bit better, if you don't give them that ability, then you're really just stunting them, just like we were stunted as children. And, don't get me wrong, Purple. My kids are long grown. My baby is 23. My oldest is 32. So there ain't no more children in my house. I'm waiting for grandbabies, but I only get grandkittens at this point. So, but either way, you have to allow yourself to, I guess, you have to allow yourself to raise your kids or be that open fountain of information for your nieces, your nephews, your grandkids, whatever it may be, where they can come to you and be the free thinkers and be encouraged to be free thinkers and be encouraged to ask those questions earlier on in life. Because I'm 52 years old. 52 years old, y'all. Okay? I've been married 3 times. I finally, 21 years ago, married the love of my life because I was so afraid to be alone. Okay? I am 52 years old and I just found out, like I said, that I am pansexual because damn, is that man handsome? And he checks all my boxes and it doesn't really matter. I wish for my children that they find their true selves and their true happiness years before I did. Years. And in my household, the only reason some of these things have to be a question or even have to be talked about, because, if you're not comfortable talking to your mama about things, that's okay. I understand that, but it's always an open door. The only reason, honestly, is I tease my kids. It's like, well, if you tell me if you're straight or gay, then I know which person to point out to you. If you want a girl, I'll point out girls to you that you can check out and find beautiful. That's the only reason it's ever been a question or anything I ever had to do in my household. Because I don't care if my son's a ballet dancer or a fucking quarterback. I don't care. I care that my son is happy. Okay? I care that my children are happy. And that is what has prompted my journey to self-discovery and self-happiness, is because I needed to be able to say, I practice what I preach to my children. Okay? I absolutely practice what I preach. And, it's still not super easy. My parental figures are not on Facebook, so they would never see this, but they have no idea. They have no idea how I live my life. I have one sister who absolutely does not judge, and she accepts me for me because I'm her big sis and she loves me. I tell everything. I tell her absolutely everything. And there's never a judgment. There's just love. Now, with my parental figures, I know there would be judgment. I know there would. So I don't know that I'm ready to come out to them as far as like my religious beliefs are and what my preferences are. But maybe one day, I don't know. At this point, my parental figures are all old. No offense to anybody in here, but my parental figures are 75 plus. Oh, wait, my stepmom's only 72. So is it really worth it? To me, it might not be worth the battle that I'd have to undergo. I really just don't know that I really want to rock their world in that way. And they would. I know them well enough that some of them would feel that it was a personal failing of theirs, that I did not grow up to believe the way that they believe. So I mean, it's not really it's not really at this point in my life a battle that I want to wage. Wow, that's actually quite impressive, Purple, that she says that her daughter is 40 and has been with her same partner since she was 15. That's a long time. And I applaud anybody who could stay into a relationship or a marriage for that long, because that is hard. You know, we have a saying in my household that says, we've had some good times, we've had some bad times, but I'm hoping when it's all said and done, we end on a good year. We end on a good memory, because it's, you know, you grow so much in a relationship. Sometimes you just have to keep growing with it. So, HR, what did you say? Yeah, no, HR, that was a big fear of mine as well, is like putting my trauma onto my kids. It's really hard not to transfer. You're right. That's perfectly said. Not to transfer that critical voice into your parenting is absolutely hard. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, but I do know that is the one thing that I have done right, is that I have allowed them to be free thinkers and be who they are. And I love them for who they are. They may not agree with me, and we might not sit on the side. In fact, I know we don't sit on the side of some political views or whatever, but when it comes down to it, they're my child, and I applaud their ability to think that way and to be able to articulate themselves in a way that they can have a discussion about it, you know? And, I would never have told my grandparents. I lost my grandmother, which was my last grandparent, probably about 6 years ago. And I would have never told them. Never in a million years. It was not worth it to me, because they would and I never was actually honest about how bad my depression was and my mental health struggles, because that generation was like depression. You know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and smile. Get on with life. What is this depression schmession thing? So it wasn't even really worth it. And Sadie, that is a really good point. Anxiety is super contagious, and it is something I've actually struggled with, in the fact that I have, and I'm allowed to say it because they have said I can say it, but 2 out of 3, and I'm suspecting all 3 of my children have mental health issues, anxiety and depression being some of those. And I feel like I passed that on to them. But, you know, honestly, once I got honest about my depression, I think I did them a service in being honest about my depression, because there's nothing I could do about the genetics. Genetically, they come from me, and that's just all there is to it. But I was able to make it so that they felt like, you know, Mom, I have this, and this is going on. And, you know, you've been open about your struggle and how hard it was for you. I feel like I can come to you, and maybe my being there for them makes their struggle a little bit less. And that's been my whole goal. You know, Sadie, it's funny you say anxiety, because you know what else they've proven is contagious is phobias. Because there are so many people in my family, probably, and I have a huge family, you guys. The fear of snakes runs rampant in my family. And honestly, I don't know that 90% of them have had a bad experience with snakes, or that they've been taught to be afraid of snakes. Me personally, I had a bad experience. But I think that can be the same thing with anxiety, is that we start to, because as children, we're going to look at the way our parents behave, and we're gonna emulate that, and we're gonna say, okay, this is the way they behave, this is how they handle that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. You know what, HR? Being hypervigilant is really hard to get over. I suffer from PTSD. I'm sure you guys have heard me say that in the past. And sometimes in dealing with my son, now he a big boy. I'm all of 5'2" and he's 6'5", and he's just a big person. And when he gets angry, he has his mother's voice. He's loud. He's in your face, just like I am. And he has triggered me on more than one occasion, to where I have like dropped to the floor and been like screaming, don't hit me, don't hit me. And he's like, fuck, Mom, I would never, and then we had to get to a point where we had to educate him on what my PTSD was like and what he was doing to trigger me. While I was working on unlearning all those trauma responses, he was learning to be more respectful of what I had gone through in my life and trying to deal with me in a more effective manner. I mean, don't get me wrong, y'all. We still scream and yell at each other because that's just how we are. But he does it now from a seated position, so I don't feel threatened. And I think that is something that we have to do. We have to do as parents. And Sadie, that's a good point. You have to do keep the open lines of communication. Because if you're not open and honest with your kids, then how do you expect them to come to you with these big, hard questions? I just want to be everything for my children that my parental figures were not for me. I want to be that person that I wish I had back in my childhood. I wish I had somebody that I could go to and ask these hard questions, and I would have found my happiness and my true self much sooner in life. But still, interesting, Sadie. Wow. Oh, kids are very intuitive. They know what's going on, but they don't. Again, like I said, if we give them that open avenue, then we will absolutely be able to have those open dialects with them about everything in their life. If you're getting bullied at school, your kid shouldn't be afraid to tell you, I'm getting bullied at school, for fear that you're going to run off. Although I would really probably run off, but run off and freaking throw a fit down at the school and make his life worse because the bully's going to, retaliate against him and everything. And it is important that, they can come to you and say, hey, now, I need you not to do this, okay? But this is what's going on. And then we can have the open discussion how they can protect themselves and in which way they want me to help them handle this. Because I'm not going to back down out of that situation and say, hey, I'm just going to let you go on your own, or toughen up, kid. That's not in me to do that. That is absolutely not in my nature to. I kind of feel that is like abandoning your kid in their time of trouble. So I would never be able to do that. Oh, wow. That's really young, HR. That they noticed that there wasn't a mom and a dad. I'm grateful for the time that my parents spent together, because I'm here in all my glory. But I don't think that ever needed to happen, really, because there's never been two less compatible people that I've ever seen in my life than my parents. And I actually didn't have an idea of what a healthy relationship should look like until my dad married my stepmom. And that is a relationship that's based on mutual love and respect. So, that gave me my example, but I think that's really cool that they noticed. But did they come to you, HR? Did they ask questions about the situation? Oh, crap. I've already been on here almost an hour, y'all. Well, I was going to say the same thing. I am going to wrap this up because I did start a little bit early, and I'm going to hang out over on Tang a little bit later on tonight. But I want to leave you guys with this. Just remember, like I said, that's awesome, HR. That's absolutely awesome. I want you guys to remember that in your journey of self-discovery and self-truth, you're never going to stop making self-improvements, okay? And to make self-improvements doesn't mean you're not happy. It's that you're finding a way to be more happy. And we really need to hold ourselves in really high regard. And I know there are men out there that are probably going to go, oh, Deborah, but there is a large majority of women out there whose self-esteem is so in the toilet because of things people have done to them. And there are men who are doing the same thing. And I'm just talking to all of you out there who know that, who feel that and have walked that road like I have. Hold yourself at a high regard. Be careful what you put up with, because you're setting an example of what they can get away with. You have to love yourself enough to stand your ground and say, no, this doesn't work for me anymore. And I'm not going to put myself second any longer. With that being said, I love you guys all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel and commenting. I'm so excited. And you know what? Thank you for just accepting me for me, because it takes a lot for me to sometimes do these things. And I appreciate the love and support that I get from y'all. So I will talk to you next week. If anybody has any ideas on what we can talk about, please, you guys know how to get a hold of me. My email is debbiesue70@gmail.com. And if you want a phone number, hit me up and I will give it to you in a chat or something, because I don't really want to put it out there over where anybody can see it. All right, you guys. It's Debbie, DEBBISUE70@gmail.com. And one of these days, you guys, I'm going to have enough people on that I can hold. I am very limited on Twitter. It is, it's DD, and then, so it's Debbie Sue 70, but with 2 Ds on Twitter, at Twitter. That makes any sense? And like I said, I will, yeah. That's actually so true, Sadie. That is so true. That's part of my getting over and relearning my trauma responses too, because I went through that whole similar situation. But one day, y'all, I swear I am going to be able to have guests on my show, and I would be open to having all of you on if I can, and maybe even have an after party, which would be so cool. But until next week, y'all, I will talk to you later. Love, and always be good to yourselves.